Alright guys, let's talk about one of the most popular civilizations of the game, and honestly a civilization that did dominate competition for more than 10 years. Before the Age of Empires Definitive Edition, Huns were the outmost civilization and they did dominate for a long time. I think that only massive civilizations actually could stand a chance against the powerful Huns. But this is the new Huns and they actually have new features, new technologies and new bonuses. So let's talk about these Huns and what are they good at. We are actually watching a game that was played on the semifinals of the Ring 1 Cup between Mr. Yo and Leary. This is a map called Bedouins. It's basically a map where you start without town centers, but once you manage to actually do your town center, you can actually get access to multiple resources. And of course, there is a lot of shore fish here on this map, which means that going for heavy food strategies like scouts, sometimes skirmishers, or even fast castle is a possibility here for the civilization. With that said, as you can see, the Huns do start here and they do receive a horse. So for non-TC start maps, the Huns do receive this horse, which can actually be quite effective. I would say that perhaps the Huns should always receive one of these on every start of game as well. This is actually so cool and it could actually open the room for many different things. What does the Hun do with this scout? Basically, he is going to scout the map. And as you can see, since you start with no scout on this nomad map, the Hun is the only one capable of walking by and getting all the ship. So not only that, but he also has the freedom to scout the whole map with his ship, knowing that he's not gonna get stolen, while his opponent, well, he has to be a bit more conservative, and for every ship that he sends up there to scout the blank places of the map, he's actually incurring the risk of getting stolen. So Leary is playing as the Berbers, one of the best civilizations of the game, and we have already made a video about this civilization and how powerful it can be, while Mr. Yo is playing here as the Huns and using his horse to not only scout but also get several amount of ship here and information, getting a lot of ship, banking up a lot of resources on his TC, and also getting all the information of the map. He's gonna get this ship, he's gonna get every other ship, and this is basically how things will go. Mr. Yo is basically trying to get as much as food under his TC as possible. He's getting multiple boars, and he's also going for the meal, so that's how you actually play this map. We haven't even yet to see anything special about the Huns, apart from the fact that they actually have this scout that can be used on non-TC start maps, and also that the Huns do not require houses. So this makes them a very noob-friendly civilization. You are not gonna get housed ever, and this is basically a wood bonus forever here that you are gonna have throughout the game. Making it booming and expanding army a lot easier for the Hun, and also even pro players do get housed time to time, the Huns will never have this issue. So let's see one of the ways and some of the strategies that can actually make the Huns very powerful. I would say that one of the best things that the Huns can do is to play with mounted units. So we are talking about either cavalry or cavalry archer units. Right there, the Hun player has started here to make an archer, but he's messing up so much food that he's soon about to click up towards the castle age. He's even delaying some of the upgrades like the fletching, just in order to defend himself using a minimum amount of army, and he will now jump towards the castle age. I think that the feudal age from the Huns can be quite good. They can actually play quite well using scouts, using archers, but as you can see, his opponent was already walled, his opponent was already massing up scouts, so he just decided to jump towards the castle age. And honestly, castle age is the strongest age for the Hun player. If you are a Hun player, you need to play very aggressive and you need to play with a lot of army during the castle age. On the castle age, you are actually going to have cav archers that are cheaper, you will also have stables that work faster, and this is the perfect combination to go for a massive amount of both cav archers and knights, or cav archers and light cavalry. Whatever you do choose to do, just go for a massive amount, and this is probably what you want to do. As you can see, the Hun is already opening up here with multiple cav archers and also knights. With this combination, you can actually harass most of the feudal age army, and of course you can actually attack from behind walls, making it harder for your opponent to defend. His opponent is already on the Castle Age, and he's actually facing a Berber. I would say, guys, that honestly, some would argue that Berbers are one of the best counters to the Huns. They do have access to the Genitor, which is a mounted skirmishers, and they do have access to cheaper camels. So they actually have some of the best weapons of the game to kill the Hun. Not only that, but they will also have cheaper knights, cheaper heavy camels, and they will also have elite camel archer, which is one of the most powerful ranged units, and also one of the best counters to cav archers from the game. So Hun is basically fighting against one of his worst nemesis here, civilization wise. I actually have this theory that Huns did dominate the game for so long before that every time players would devs would actually develop a civilization, they were aiming on things that would actually be good on countering the Huns. Let's think about Gurjuras, great camel civilization and has at least 2 good weapons against cav archers. Let's think about Hindustanis, great camel civilization and actually has food savings to make their elite skirmisher game a bit better against the Huns. Elite skirmishers upgrade got nerfed, cav archer bonus got diminished, and even so Huns are still relevant. In order to make up for the cav archer, one of the things that the cav archer bonus being less significant, one of the things that the Huns can do is actually maximize its power by using siege. So in my opinion, one of the most powerful combinations a Hun player can use is the combination of cav archer plus siege. I would say that usually cav archer plus mangonel is my favorite, but as you can see, even other options like runs and scorpions can still be a thing here for the Hun player. So the Hun can basically keep pressuring while only using wood and gold, and as you guys probably know from other civilization guides, that actually opens room for the Hun to actually boom a lot here. As you can see, the Hun is keeping multiple town centers working while pressuring his opponent, which is quite good. With that said, the Hun player can also rely on different weapons for the Imperial Age, and even for the late Castle Age, it's not gonna be much different from messing up cavalry, knights, and siege. That's such a good game. The Berbers counterattacking. This is not something that is usually very common for us to see. The Hun being under a lot of pressure here against Genitors, Camels, Siege, Mangonels. There are a lot of complications here for the Hun player to actually perform good, but he's still booming, he's still developing, and of course, the Hun also has a very wide tech tree. The Hun, for example, can go for the skirmisher, he has access to tambourine, he can go for some infantry up to halberdier. He will, of course, lack some of the upgrades. For example, he will lack the last infantry armor, he will actually lack the last skirmisher and cav archer armor, but he can actually win by the cost of his units. And of course, he does have the full cavalry technology tree there up to paladin, and even some other options like elite Tarkan. Interesting game. Some siege, elite skirmishers, a heavy boom here for the Hun player. So far we do witness that he has 3 town centers, and we are about to see Hun going for something very unusual here, which is a castle here in order to produce Tarkans. Tarkans are one of the best units here from the Hun. He'll probably just make it during the Imperial Age, better now just to save up the food to click up. And I'm going to later explain why this unit is so great. So, Tarkans were originally designed to be a raiding unit, basically a unit in order to harass enemy siege. They do have only 8 attack, not so different from a light cavalry, but they already have the same amount of HP of a knight on their Castle Age version. Their armor stats is a bit different. While the knight has basically 2 pierce and 2 melee armor, the Tarkan has 1 less melee armor, but 1 extra pierce armor, which makes the Tarkan a bit more useful when fighting against ranged units. So if you have to fight against enemy knights or enemy camels, you rather have your own knights, but you actually are aiming on sniping on enemy ranged units or even enemy siege, Tarkans can actually be a good option because of this extra pierce armor, which can also be quite crafty, and it also scales pretty well during the Imperial Age, where we are later going to talk about. Right there, as you can see, Hun is still trying to do his best here using the cav archers. Struggling a beast since he's against the Berber. He might actually later add a few more units, and there, as you can see, more and more cav archers being added. Hun versus Berber. Honestly, guys, if I had to bet, I would actually bet on the Berber. I would say that the Berber are almost a counter unit to the Huns here on this stage of the game, but the Hun does not rely here on the effectiveness of their units, but rather their cost. Their units are also cheaper, their Cav Archer is cheaper. I know that the Berber has cheaper knights, but the Hun has cheaper Cav Archers, so he can actually back his units up here using its cost. On Impure Rage, this discount goes up to 20%, which makes them a lot more easier to be massed. And then the Hun can just keep harassing and make a small combination here of a Heavy Cav Archer plus Light Cavalry. And this will probably be one of the most useful and the most useful army compositions from the Huns Civilization. Going for massive amount of Cav Archers combined here with Light Cav. This is probably the best thing you can expect here for a Hun player. The Hun do lack the last armor, but they still have access to Parch and Tactics, which actually allows them to go up until 4 Pierce armor on their Cav Archer, which can be quite crafty, quite useful. I haven't mentioned it, but there is also another small bonus from the Huns, which is the extra accuracy from their trebuchets. Their trebuchets, where is it? They lost it? Oh no, their trebuchets fire more accurately at units and small targets. This extra accuracy from the trebuchets, making the trebuchets from the Huns a great siege unit, they're actually gonna miss a lot less shots than the regular trebuchet, making them one of the best units here to be used for the Hun. What's the reason for that? I have no idea. Multiple castles, multiple cavalry, and numbers. Number of Heavy Cav Archers, number of Light Cavalry, and that's basically how the Hun can play even against counter units such as the Berber. Also, do not underestimate how powerful Cav Archers can be, and of course they are actually going to outlive their gold counterparts, especially if they are in the frontline units such as the Heavy Camel Riders. Stable units are about to be finished to upgrade, so this can actually be going to get a lot better for the Hun player. He's trying to raid with Tarkans. This is the original design of the Tarkan Civ, but against Camel Civs they are not so powerful. Hun can actually go for halberdiers as well, but as we said, it does lack the last armor, so you usually want to play here with cavalry instead of focusing here on the infantry one. You also do not want to lose your mobility, so keeping a good amount of Cav Archers on the field at every time is one of the ways to go. But as you can see, if necessary, you can also go for the halberdier, like for example in a matchup against the Berber, where he will be playing with a lot of ranged units, like Elite Genitor, Heavy Camels. So quite crafty game, quite difficult game. Leary is constantly producing these units since early Castle Age. It seems that he's actually managing to counter the Hun quite well here, but do not mistake yourselves, guys. Huns, even against some counter units, are still quite powerful, and the cheaper cost of their Cav Archers can actually make up for great plays. Huns holding his ground is now switching back to the halberdier. And I think that we are about to see one of the best army compositions from the Huns. In the past, Huns would actually need multiple castles in order to play with Tarkans. Through the ages, even in the tournament games like Legacy of the Huns, where only Huns was played as a civilization, players started to develop new play styles for this civilization. And for this reason, there were also a lot of players going towards the Tarkans. And I think that one of the things that makes the Tarkan play a lot more powerful on the Definitive Edition is that the Huns do have access to this upgrade called Marauders. Marauders is similar to Anarchy from the Goths, which actually allows you to produce your unique unit from the regular building. So you do not need castles to produce Tarkan, but rather you can use stables. Because of that, the Hun can just lose his castles or even sometimes trade their stone here for gold in order to actually get extra gold and actually use only stables to produce the Tarkans. And this is very powerful because it scales pretty well, but because all the stables from the Huns do work 20% faster, which means that producing Hussars and light cavalry is quite exactly what the civilization wants to do. As you are seeing here, the Hun player is basically just trying to control the map here using multiple castles, winning trap wars and winning ground slowly here, and controlling the gold. The Berber, despite having great units, is at some small struggle here in order to finish off the Hun. The Janitors are a very niched unit. They're pretty good when trading against Cav Archers, but they basically deal no damage at all to Russars, making them very vulnerable to this unit. It's very difficult for the Berber to actually achieve something here with the Janitors else than killing the Cav Archers. They are especially designed with that purpose here. Halberdiers, Russars, Huns starting to mix in some extra units here, some extra trash units. And with the addition of the halberdiers, it makes it very difficult for the Berber to just keep harassing and messing up his own units. That will eventually lead the Berber to switch into something different, like hand cannoneer, elite camel archer, because I don't feel like the janitors itself are going to be enough to kill the halberdiers. Despite being a skirmisher-like unit, they are also a mounted unit, which means that if the halberdiers can actually get close, they will actually die. In some scenarios, the Berber player might actually choose to go for elite skirmishers rather than janitor. On this scenario, I would still say that the janitors are quite useful. These halberdiers are actually lacking the last armor, which makes them very vulnerable targets here. And finally, guys, let's go for the final army switch here. Elite Tarkan and Marauders. Why is this so powerful? Well, Elite Tarkan and Marauders. Right now, Mr. Yu will be able to start harassing and massing up Tarkans. And the Tarkans are quite good because their stats are sometimes similar to Paladins. Let's take a look on a single Tarkan as soon as we see one here. There he goes. They do have 170 HP. Guys, honestly, this is a lot. For example, take for example a Russar. Let me find a Russar here from the Berber. The Russar only has 95 HP, the Tarkan has 170, that's almost twice its HP, and the Tarkan has something that even the Paladin does not have. It does have 8 pierce armor. Basically, the Tarkan not only will be good dealing with buildings, but will actually ignore damage from ranged units. Despite having less attack and less melee armor than a Paladin, the Tarkan is very useful when it comes to counter ranged units. So if you're playing against a powerful ranged unit and you are the Hun, honestly I would say that you actually should choose the Tarkans instead of choosing the Paladin on that purpose. Because not only that, but the Tarkan are also cheaper. So you have a 15 gold cheaper unit than a Paladin that has more armor. You have similar stats to a Savar when it comes to tank damage here from arrows. And also, instead of upgrading both Cavalier and Paladin, which are quite expensive, you are only going to upgrade the Elite Tarkan, which is a lot cheaper than the regular Paladin and Cavalier upgrades combined. I would say that it's closer to 50% cheaper there. And as you can see, you are basically telling your opponent that, hey man, forget about your units. If you're going for units such as Elite Janitor or Elite Camel Archer, I'm just going to melt. I'm just going to kill buildings, siege and everything, and you are actually going to have to rely on your camels alone. And of course, in order to deal with the camels, the Hun can actually add halberdiers. So Elite Tarkan and Halberdier is honestly one of the best army compositions that the Hun player can use to fight against camel civilizations. I would say that civilizations such as the Berbers, the Hindustanis, the Saracens, the Gurjaras, all of those civilizations do lack halberdier, which means that despite not having the best halb, Huns still have a lead here technologically over them. And then of course you can keep harassing them with camels, and this will eventually be very stressful for your opponent to deal with. He will need some kind of unit to deal with halberdiers. The Tarkans will constantly be luring him and forcing him to get bad fights. And of course, if he stops going for the camels, you can just go there and raid his base, kill his town centers, kill everything. The Tarkans can be very annoying. If left unattended, they can actually even take down castles here. So this is basically ways to play with the Huns, guys. Massive amount of Cav Archers, massive amount of Knights, Russars, Elite Tarkans. I think that this game just showcases most of the strengths here from the Hun. Apart of course from their feudal age technology tree and the strength that they have on that age as well, which is basically messing up both scouts and archers, which can be quite useful. With that said, you can see that even civilizations that are on paper or on theory supposed to be counters to the Huns, they are still very tricky to be dealt with. With the combination of Tarkan, Halberdier, Revikiv Archer, Huns are a very annoying civilization to be dealt with. A few Tarkans left unattended are just going to kill multiple villagers and even multiple buildings, and in the 1v1 a single Tarkan can actually absorb a lot of damage and kill a regular trash unit like a Rusar. That's way too much HP, and their bonus against buildings is quite unfair to be dealt against. I don't think this gets much any better than that, guys. Tarkans with their torches combined with a few halberdiers and ranged units are just hopeless against this unit. Hopeless. Honestly, 170 HP and 8 pierce armor. That's a monster unit. Having to deal with that, guys, with ranged units is very annoying. The Berber never got a chance here to even play with their camel archers, and on the desperate move he's even forcing himself to add pikemen, because as you can see it's very expensive if you are a camel civ to keep playing every time with camels, and by the time the Hun starts to mixing some units such as the halberdiers there to their comp, you just cannot keep wasting camels to try to kill that unit. That's basically the Huns, guys. About the siege, Huns have some peculiarities here. They are one of the two civilizations from the game that have no access to Onager, the other being the Turks. They have no access to Rev Scorpion, so in the matter of siege, either go for the siege run to take down the buildings or trebuchet it. So the siege units from the Huns are quite crafty here. What they are actually telling you is, hey, you either use the siege here during the Castle Age, because on the Imperial Age it's only trebuchets, siege runs, and of course in some cases Tarkans. But the siege runs can be quite crafty. You can actually go and kill multiple rouses, support that with the Halps. And of course, siege runs also have a great synergy with the Hun gameplay, because you actually want the map to be clean as possible from walls and buildings, so that you can abuse from the speed of your units to raid your opponent constantly. So having access to siege run is quite good on this aspect. So guys, this is basically what I had to tell about the Huns. I hope you guys enjoy it. There isn't much more to talk. I will actually try to find for another game, so if this video actually has a small continuation, it's basically to talk some extras or something that we just didn't discuss it here about the Huns. By the way, guys, Huns were so popular that if you actually seek for games from like the 2000s until like 2017 on tournaments, you are actually going to watch a lot of Hun games, guys. Draft was also not a thing back then, so we wouldn't just ban Huns and play something else. We would just play like Huns, and we even had several tournaments of only Huns there, so quite crafty. We had like Legacy of Huns, Master of Huns, basically tournaments for players only to go for Arabia and Hun wars. So very interesting one, and as you can see, even a civilization like the Berbers can feel like hopeless against these word compositions here from the Huns. Alright guys, let's talk a bit about the Huns Feudal Age. Since we just watched a game where the Hun basically skipped the Feudal Age, you might get left with the impression that Huns were designed to be played on the Castle Age. Well, that's not actually true. Their Castle Age and Imperial Age were actually showcased on the previous game, but what I actually want to show you guys is that they can still be quite powerful on the Feudal Age. On this game here, you do have Mystery against Viper. This is the same map from the previous one, the Bedouins, but his town center is way closer to the center, making it nearly impossible to wall. So on this stage, the Hun will actually need to play mostly on Feudal Age. Of course, if it's an OTC map, my expectation is that due to using your unique horse, you actually have a good amount of ship here that you have taken from the map. At least more than your opponent, like 10 against 15, well, way better for the Hun, right? Anyway, with that said, let's take a look here on how things will actually develop towards the Feudal Age. So both players are going towards the Feudal Age. The Hun is actually investing here into extra meals, extra stuff, going out for the castles and for the buildings, and this is basically how we want to play as the Huns. Go for a stable opening. I think that a stable opening is great for the Huns because their stables do work 20% faster, and since you are not even investing into houses, it's more likely that you are going to have extra or excellent wood. And with this excellent wood, you can actually do several stuff. For example, in a regular Arabia game, you'll probably want to start surrounding your town center with farms. But if you are playing a very aggressive game where you're closer to your opponent, like this one of the things that you can actually aim to do here is to already make a transition here into archers. So one of the most popular ways to play Feudal Age since most ancient times, since Arch Coven began doing this stuff, is going for Scout and Archers. Scout and Archers is a very strong army composition, is a very strong strategy. Basically, the only weakness here to the scouts on the early stages of the game are spearmen, and by having archers you can actually deal with the spearmen. And later on, if your opponent starts massing more archers, you can either switch to extra archers yourself, to skirmishers, or even upgrade your cavalry. So in a map where it's difficult to wall, you are basically saying that going for full archers might not be the best option for your opponents, and then going for scout and archers can actually be good. Scouts will basically raid and kill everything, and archers can actually make a good cover, killing villagers that are trying to wall, killing spearmen, and providing the backup needed. So if you are playing as the Huns, go for Scout and Archers. Different from other civilizations, one of the biggest benefits from playing as the Huns is that you do not need to keep making houses. For that reason, you can actually just focus on making army, making army, making army. On the past, longer feudal ages were like the norm here. They were a lot more common. It was very unusual to see players going for very fast castle age approaches. So players would just stay like 25, 30, even sometimes 30 minutes during the feudal age. And in those scenarios, the Huns did shine a lot, because basically you would just keep scaling your population up to 70, 80 population without even thinking about adding houses. But with that said, Huns can not only go for the Scout and Archers, but this will actually be a very good setup for the Castle Age. We have already seen a game from the Huns on the Castle Age and how powerful they can be using the Cav Archers, using the Knights. Well, the truth is they can actually do a good setup when they go for the Scout and Archers, because they are not only investing into stables, but they are also going to invest into archer ranges. And having this combination on the Castle Age will allow the Hun to play with both Knights and Cav Archers. And of course, if you are massing massive amount of archers during the feudal age, you can just play on the early castle age using the crossbowmen. Crossbowmen supported by a few scouts, knights, make sure that you upgrade this unit. If you want, even go for aggressive buildings and aggressive upgrades such as ballistics, and make sure that you are actually going to have enough ranges to later transition into the cav archers. As you can see, the Huns jumping on the enemy skirmishers, archers walking around trying to get and snipe enemy units. There comes the scouts to defend. The scouts are actually hopeless here against this pack of crossbowmen. And even the skirmishers are having some difficulty. So after some small feudal age, the Hun can actually follow up here with crossbowmen, and then we are just back to the previous game where the Hun is actually going to spend his cav archers, start booming and doing whatever he wants. But honestly, it's very difficult to deal with. Not only you are having to deal with ranged units, but also now with the mobility, and later of course the siege. So this is going directly where we watched it in the previous game, and the Hun actually shines on this kind of scenario where they can make a small pressure during the feudal age, and later go and transition into the cav archer and siege. And that's basically it, guys.